This book is the bomb, as they say. An awesome little book. You can pick it up for about a tenner on Amazon or from a good monastery bookshop. On fasting and feast from St. Basil the Great. There's two great homilies in here from the great Eastern Church Father, to say the least. And there's also some nice homilies about Thanksgiving, and they go hand in hand, fasting, Thanksgiving, and also a couple of homilies that he gave when local martyrs from where he lived had passed on, and they were celebrating their their life and their passing. I've only got as far through as homily 1. I'm working through it, and it's something I intend to take my time with. I think it's very beautiful to read these, for what it's worth, it's my opinion, when you're fasting, because it helps you to really invest in what you're doing, that it's something really marvellous, beautiful and life-giving. It's interesting in this secular practice, the Buchinger therapy approach, that what's been mentioned here is that the scientific research seems to show that those who invest into their fasting, like people with cancer, specifically cancer patients, that believed in what they were doing and that were doing it voluntarily as opposed to like, yeah, whatever, I'll give it a try. They got a lot more from fasting on a physiological level. Obviously, we're not just bodies, we're minds, soul, the whole kit and caboodle. Here we get the specific contours of Christian fasting, and it's so beautiful. Homily 1, my word. I mean, you can find homily 1 and 2 on fasting by St. Basil on PDF forms online easily enough, but it's nice to have them in this format. He starts off by saying, look, don't be gloomy when you're fasting. That's a waste of time. He says, people who are getting crowned and having victory aren't gloomy. So what's happening if you're, playing the martyr? I'm sorry to use the term playing the martyr, but you know what I mean by that. All dour. Don't do it. Jesus himself says, do not be gloomy, but wash your face and anoint your head. Basil's wonderfully biblical. He's going to give us a whole sweep through the Bible, starting from Adam and Eve, all the way through the Bible, showing that fasting is at the center. It's there throughout Old and New Testament, which is wonderful. It really brings the Bible to life and shows the power of fasting from a spiritual angle. He admonishes us to revere the ancient nature of fasting, the antiquity of fasting. And he then takes us on a guided tour of the Bible, showing us the importance of fasting right from Eden. He says it's before all self-indulgence. There's fasting, there's limits, self-control in the Garden of Eden, at the tree of life, and that the loss of it is the demise of man. But he goes into that in much more detail. Fasting, then, he says, is like a mirror into Eden and paradise, where the manner of life was the life of the angels, with simplicity, content with little, and because they had not dreamt up all the things that beclouds the human mind. He speaks of that quite often, of the passions of appetites stirring up in us and beclouding the human mind. This is why Noah, he says, was so innocent with drink, because there was no drink in paradise. This comes after with the flood. Once, he says, the hope of human perfection had waned, then alcohol comes into the mix, as does eating animal flesh, meat. There's so many wonderful biblical interpretations. Adam and Eve, Noah, Moses. He compares the ascent of Moses to God at Mount Sinai through fasting, compared to the descent of the people below through indulgence as they sat down to eat and drink, and then ended up in idol worship and and other unpleasantries which brought chaos to them. So that's your two paths. He's saying ascent to God through fasting and prayer, like Moses on Mount Sinai, or descent into chaos with the passions and indulgences of the fallen flesh. Fasting, he says, experience it. You see how more wonderfully your body will be at ease and with rest of a night time than with excess and indulgence. It oils up the athlete for contest. It is the companion of sobriety and the craftsman of self-control. What a wonderful expression. The craftsman of self-control. In war, it teaches bravery. In peace, stillness. It sanctifies the monk and perfects the priest. It is impossible to venture upon priestly activities without it, both in the Old Testament and in the New, he says. And Elijah, 40 days he fasted and thus prepared himself, was deemed worthy, Basil says, of seeing the Lord in the cave of Horeb, insofar as a human can do. And while fasting, he was able to perform the miracle of raising the child of the widow of Nain. I think it is. Fasting granting him power, St. Basil says, over death. Fasting he brought to all the people through famine in order to correct the wickedness that comes from self-indulgence and a dissolute life. Wild vegetables and a little bit of meal did him fine. And in general, you will find that fasting guided all the saints to a godly way of life. Beautiful, beautiful text. Well recommended.